So today's video is going to be about why you struggle to translate your training performances into match days. Now, this video was suggested by someone in the comments, and today I'm going to be answering that question. Now, the guy in the comments, he was saying that for him, when he gets into a match, he just starts overthinking. Like, he overthinks his actions, he overthinks his decision making and all of that. But I asked him if it was nerves, and he said that he doesn't necessarily think that it's nerves, it's just sort of overthinking. Now, this guy said that he has only been playing football for 2 years. So my theory for this guy in particular is that you just have to be playing more football. You just have to be playing football for a higher number of years, basically, because obviously as you start playing, your football IQ goes up and you start just getting that natural feel for the game. You know where to be in certain positions. I don't know which position this guy plays, but you just sort of get that know-how through experience, especially if the case for this guy in particular is if it's not your nerves that you feel like it's holding you back, and it's more just overthinking, then that might just be an experience thing, because you did say that you had only been playing for 2 years. So like I said, it's just about watching. I think it's just about watching more games and just improving your football IQ. Literally just watching more games and just playing more games. If you can play more small-sided games, 5-a-side games, 7-a-side games, just make sure you're consistently showing up for your team, playing 11-a-side matches. Then obviously over time you're gonna start noticing different things. It's a process at the end of the day. Like me, my football IQ now compared to what it was maybe like 5 years ago, I feel like I have such a better feel for the game. You know what I'm saying? I just sort of know where to be, what positions to take up, knowing in which areas to take one touch, to take 2 touches, knowing when to turn, scanning my shoulders. And I feel like that in particular literally just comes through experience. You know what I'm saying? Because obviously when you haven't done something before, imagine you just throw a guy onto the football pitch who's never played football before. He's gonna be overthinking everything because he's never been in that position before. You understand? He's gonna be overthinking everything. He's gonna see a pass and he's gonna be like, is this the right pass I need to play? Do I need to dribble here? Do I need to shoot here? It's just gonna be a mess. You understand? But obviously, if you get a seasoned pro who's been there, he's done that. He's been around the block, basically. He just knows what to do and what's in certain positions. He just knows what to do. You understand? So I feel like for this guy in particular, like I said, if it isn't nerves and it's just sort of you overthinking, then I feel like it's just more of an experience / football IQ sort of problem, which, like I said, you did say you've only been playing for 2 years. So like I said, just keep playing, and eventually you just get a much better feel for the game. Because even the best players that might be around your area, around your age group, when they're like 14, 15 or whatever, yeah, they're gonna be better players. But trust me, if they're still playing 5 years later, you're gonna see a massive difference just in the way they play. You're gonna notice a lot more mistakes, how they're playing more efficiently. You know what I'm saying? How maybe before a certain action they were taking 2 touches, but now they're taking 1. Before they were taking 3 touches in that certain situation, but now they take 2. Their decision making is just better. So I just feel like if you're overthinking in that sense and you haven't been playing for a long time, it's literally just an experience thing. Like I said, just keep watching games and literally just keep playing more football. Keep playing more football. I know you might not feel at the time. You might not feel like you just feel like playing more games really help. Trust me, it's a process. Trust me. One day, if you keep playing, one day something's just gonna click. How I can explain it is sort of like, if I take myself for example, let's say when you're just doing kick-ups, just warming up. I remember for the longest time I couldn't do an around the world. I couldn't do it inside or outside. I couldn't do it either way around the world. And then just one day, all of a sudden, I realized I could just do an around the world. I feel like that's just because, like I said, I hadn't necessarily been practicing around the world, for hours and hours and hours on end. But at a certain point when you're just playing football, you just sort of have that manipulation of the ball. You just sort of have that feel for the ball. And I feel like that's the same with, your experience on the pitch. Once you actually gain that experience on the pitch, you stop overthinking. You understand? Especially if you're not nervous. If you're not nervous, then that's cool. See, nerves is a different thing. I'll get to nerves in a second. If you're nervous, if you go onto the pitch nervous, that's a different thing. But if you get onto the pitch, you're all right. But as soon as you get on the ball, you're overthinking. That's just sort of, like I said, an experience thing. Like I said with my around the world analogy, I wasn't necessarily, when I was 7, 8 years old, couldn't really do around the world. But like I said, give it like 5 years later. I think it was like 5 years later, 7 years later. I can't remember how old I was, but I just at a certain point, literally just from the hours of just playing, hours of doing kick-ups, hours of, you know, playing two touch with my friends, you just sort of get that feel for the ball. And eventually, and eventually right now, I'm able to do, you know, an around the road both ways with ease. So, like I said, if your problem is like this guy in the comments where you're not nervous but you're just sort of overthinking, it's probably just an experience thing. You're probably just not playing enough football. I know that it's a boring answer, but it's probably the truth. You're probably just not playing enough. You're not playing enough football, especially if it's not a nerve situation. Now, if you're nervous on the pitch, in my opinion, you just have to change your mind. You just have to sort of, you know, change your mindset. But also, like I said again, you just have to train. In my opinion, the root cause of this is that, are you training enough? Because if you're training enough, you should be going out onto the pitch with confidence. Because me personally, if throughout the week, if I play football every single day, I go onto that pitch on, like I said, whether it's the Saturday or the Sunday, I go out onto that pitch with maximum confidence, like total confidence. But imagine if I go out onto the pitch and I only play football once that week. Let's say I only went to one team training session, but I didn't really do anything outside. You know, I didn't really do any fitness work. I didn't do sprints. I didn't go on runs. I didn't do any of that. Then of course on the Sunday I'm gonna be feeling, you know, you're gonna be feeling a bit nervous. Let's say that you went out to a club the night before. You know, you wake up, you're hungover. Of course, when you go out onto the pitch that Saturday or that Sunday, you're not gonna be feeling as confident. But if you went to bed, you know, nice and early, you wake up feeling fresh. You know, you do your pre-game ritual, your pre-game routine, then obviously you're gonna be feeling a lot more confident. So literally, I feel like when it comes to, you know, translating your training performances to your match performances, first of all, I feel like with training, the reason why you perform very well at training, first of all is the pressure. Obviously, you don't have people watching. You don't feel that. You don't have people watching. You don't really think about, you know, letting your teammates down, letting your coach down in training, because at the end of the day, it's just training. You're just sort of working on things. And that's cool. But obviously, when you get into the matches, you know, like I said, maybe you got your parents watching, maybe you got, you know, fans of your team watching, maybe. Like I said, you don't want to let down your manager. You're scared that if you give the ball away a few times, your teammates are going to get onto you. Your manager might sub you off early, sub you off at half time. Obviously, you've got all these things going on in your mind. But in my opinion, the way to counteract this is that you have to sort of create a sense of familiarity. So what I mean by a sense of familiarity is literally that pre-game, in my opinion, create a pre-game ritual. But this way, every single game feels like the same. Maybe think back to a time where you had a very good game. And try to remember your process. Try to remember what you did before that on the morning, or maybe starting from the night before the game all the way up to the game. Maybe you start from the morning of the game. Think about what you did in your best performances. Think about, you know, what things are common, and then literally just create that sense of familiarity. And the reason why I say familiarity is because, think about it, if you've been on the same team, let's say you've been on the same team for 2 years, yeah, obviously you've probably been playing with the same sort of you've probably had the same teammates, same coaches. Obviously your coaches, depending on, let's say it's an in-season training session, it's probably like the same patterns, you understand? You know, everything is just familiar, so you're not really nervous. There's no sort of element of the unknown. Even like, you're playing against the same players, you're playing against your same teammates, you know your teammates' strengths and weaknesses. That's another thing as well that I think players don't actually realise, is that once you've been playing, you know, training games against your teammates for so long, obviously you're going to perform better because you know their tendencies. You know, okay, this guy likes to drive inside, this guy likes to, you know, do a step over and go on the outside, this guy doesn't really trust his weak foot, this guy likes to take too many touches. You sort of know your teammates' tendencies, which allows you to, you know, anticipate what they're gonna do. Maybe allows you to dispossess them. Okay, maybe you're a winger. You know that the guy on your team you're coming up against, he likes to dive in. So especially when you receive the ball, you're sort of expecting him to dive in. So you make sure that you move it quick, or you make sure that you take a directional touch. You understand? But obviously, when you get into the matches, you're playing against opponents you don't really know. Obviously, maybe you have game footage of your opponents that you go up against, but more likely than not, you don't really know them. And I feel like that's another thing I feel like that's another thing that plays into why you don't play as well in matches as you do in training, because there's that element of the unknown in matches. Sorry, you don't really know your opponent's tendencies. Only professional footballers really get the luxury of, you know, watching their opponents, seeing what their opponents like to do. Let's say it's a fullback who's coming up against a winger like Salah. He can just get all of Salah's games, and he can literally just study Salah for the whole week. But obviously, you as a young player, you don't really have that luxury unless you're playing against a team that films their games. But even that, maybe you have one team in your league that films your games. You understand? So I feel like that's another reason. I feel like for me, that I've just realised that recently, that's probably why a lot of players don't really play as well in matches than they do in training. Because like I said, you know your teammates' tendencies, you know what they like to do, so you can just anticipate from there. Whereas in matches, you don't know what this guy's gonna do. You might go in tight on a guy, and then he just knocks it past you and he runs. And then you find out on that play, oh damn, like this guy's got 99 pace, he's moving like Mbappe. But you didn't know that. But obviously in training, if you're coming up against your winger who you already know he has 99 pace, so you're not gonna dive in, you're gonna step back a little bit and be patient, you understand? So obviously, I feel like this sense of familiarity is key, because like I said, in training, you're probably doing the same training patterns as well. You're probably, you know, you start off with a little warm up. Maybe your coach tells you every time, okay, do two laps of the whole 11 aside. Then you come in, you do a sharp little warm up where, you know, you're opening the gates, you're you're kicking out to stretch your hamstrings, you're doing ankle mobility work, all sorts. Like I can remember my team training just off head. So you run 2 laps of the pitch, come in, do a more intense warm up where like I said, you're stretching your muscles. Then you come in a circle, and I'm saying you do your static stretches afterwards. Then we might go into, you know, a passing drill, a small passing drill. Then after that, maybe some passing patterns. Then after that, maybe like attack v defense, and then we'll go into like a full like 7v7 match, or however many people are out training that day. Literally, like I said, your coaches probably, you know, have the same sort of training patterns every single time, so it creates that sense of familiarity, understand? And obviously, when you have that sense of familiarity, you're sort of calmer. You're like, alright, cool, I know what's happening, I know what's gonna happen. I'm cool. So obviously your nerves, you're not nervous for training, because like I said, you know what's gonna happen. But obviously, as we know, on match days, each game is different. You understand? Each game is different. You never know who you're gonna come up against. Like I said, as a young player coming through the ranks, you don't know who their best player is. Their best player might be the centre back, might be the striker, might be the centre mid. You might be coming up against, you know, you might be coming against a future wonder kid, and you just don't know. Like it just happens to go like that. So literally, in my opinion, create that sense of familiarity. There's so many external factors on a match day, and literally try to take control of the one thing that you can take control of, and that's just your routine. Have a pre-match routine, in my opinion, so it sort of calms your nerves. So, you know, it sort of calms your nerves and gets you ready for the game. Whether that's you like to go on walks, you like to listen to a certain playlist, you like to, like I said, you might like to get to the change room 20 minutes before everyone else. Whatever you need to do, maybe there's a specific food you eat before match days. Whatever you need to do. Like I heard recently that Declan Rice now eats like pancakes smothered in syrup now, and apparently ever since he's done that, he's been balling out. He said the first time he did it, he balled out, so now he's just playing, now he's just, you know, eating pancakes and syrup pancakes filled with syrup before every game. And obviously, think about what that is doing to him mentally. Just think, he's obviously, when he's eating them pancakes with the syrup, he's thinking, yo, I'm gonna ball out today. So he's going in more confident, because, you know, it's familiar to him. He knows this is what he always does, you know. And obviously, it just gives him that confidence, that belief going into the game. Because obviously, once he steps across them lines, he's like, alright, cool, I did my pre-game routine, I've eaten my pancakes, I've done what I need to done, I've done what I needed to do, sorry. So eating my pancakes, I've got massages from the trainers, I've stretched out, I've warmed up with the football. He knows what he needs to do. Now it's just go out there and perform. So, like I said, I feel like if you're struggling to translate your training performances to your match day performances, I think the key word you take from this vid is familiarity. Is that training is very familiar, same players, same coaches, same environment every single time. Whereas match days, there's so many things that are unpredictable. You don't know what's gonna happen. So, at least take some of that familiarity, put it in your match day by creating a pre-game routine. A pre-game routine that gets you into the zone. Like I said, think back to your best think back to your best performances and say, alright, cool, what did I do on that day? Whatever I need to do on that day, whatever I did on that day, sorry, I'm gonna do it from now on, you understand? Because the thing is, you don't understand, is that superstitions and, you know, pre-game rituals is a powerful thing, you know? If you can trick your mind into thinking, yo, today's gonna be a good day, I'm gonna ball out, it's like, yo, you're gonna ball out, innit? Like, there's so many footballers with different routines, different pre-game rituals. I heard Marco Reus used to put on his I think it was his left shin. No, I think it was his right shin pad, right sock, and right football boot first. So he literally put all of that on first, and then he'll go to the left shin pad, left sock, left football boot. You understand? Just little pre-game routines like that. I heard CR7, he normally always steps onto the pitch with his right foot. You understand? So there's so many different pre-game rituals, as long as whatever gets you into the zone, whatever gives you that sense of familiarity, that sense of confidence, saying that, okay, cool, as long as I do this before the game, I'm gonna be good. Like, as long as I do this, I'm confident. And just make sure once you create that pre-game routine, just stick to it, and trust me, that's how you can sort of gain back that familiarity, so you can sort of, you know, perform better in matches, perform closer to the level that you do in training. So that's all I've got to say for this vid. I hope you enjoyed. I've been JT, and I'm out.